Hi, I'm Tasha with Pathways to Peace Counseling, and today we're going to talk about counseling games that you can play with teens and tweens. This is kind of a difficult audience because they're not necessarily into all the same games that the little ones are into. You can entertain littles with pretty much any game. I mean, they're a very captive audience, but once kids get into the teen years, they become a little bit more picky about things. So I've put together a list of games that really do appeal to this crowd and are more aimed at their intellect level. We're going to start with talking about Battle in My Brain. So this one is about, the thoughts, temptations, guilt, anger, all of these different things that kids, I mean, they have huge emotions when they're teenagers. Everything feels big. And Battle in My Brain helps break it down and helps kids understand some of the underlying issues as far as that war between them of temptation and following their conscience and being able to recognize these different things pulling at them and being able to look at things more on a logical, rational level rather than being ruled by emotions all the time. And once they learn to pay attention to their inner voice and re-script it, then they're going to make better choices. So Battle in My Brain is a great one for the teens, but I'll throw out there, I love using the image on this with the little ones because a lot of times they make really bad choices and they're like, and sometimes they're even like, a voice told me to do it. And then once we break it down, they're talking about their conscience or their temptation. So it's not necessarily, not every time a kid says, I'm hearing voices, are they actually hearing voices? They just kind of lack the language of telling you exactly what's going on. So the next one is the breakup. So this is a short story about a couple that they're happy, they're in love, and everything seems to be going well, but then they break up. And so this boy is learning how to live without his Gracie, and it's a heartbreak story for him. But the game that goes along with it is great for teaching kids about boundaries and really self-care and taking care of your relationships and not letting another person become more important to you than who you are. There's a lot in there about identity and identifying with other people. So kids need to have a sense of self if they're really going to grow in confidence and have healthy relationships. It also talks about respectful breakups, that whenever you break up with people, it's not good to just go on a tear and tear the other person apart and put them down, but to just say, we're not right for each other, time to move on, but do it amicably. So that one is the breakup. Um, Getting to know you, UNO cards. So there are lots and lots of different UNO-like games that you can find. They're all over Teachers Pay Teachers, but this one is really kind of aimed towards the teens. And so it's kind of a getting to know you for back to school, but it's also great for, early on in your sessions whenever you're getting to know each other. So it's going to have questions about social connections, your personal favorites, personal values, and your hobbies and your goals. So it just opens up some discussion, especially for kids that might be a little bit slow to warm. It will prod them along a little bit. And then we have cognitive distortions. This was my very first therapy game, and it is pretty dense. It has so many cards, and it's all about different cognitive distortions that people have. You've got magnifying, blaming, mind reading, catastrophizing, controlling, global labels that is a lot of the racism and, like all women are this way or, whatever, just these labels that people put on people, and filtering. So it'll have a card in there that defines each one. And then it will also have little vignettes of things that are happening and how using these cognitive distortions can lead to not so great outcomes and ways to re-script your thoughts to overcome these cognitive distortions. So there's a lot of material in this one, like way more than are in my other games. Color Your World is a great one for kids who love to do art. Even for those that don't enjoy art so much, the concept of it flows well, especially for teens. So there's 8 different categories of cards within this one, and there's going to be one prompt within each category that will tell you to draw something. you could always, somebody that doesn't want to draw, you could be like, just describe it, whatever, just roll with it. But so the concept behind this one is viewing your life like a blank slate, and you get to make it whatever you want it to be. And so it really gives kids a sense of confidence for their future, because a lot of times teens who are going through a rough patch in life feel hopeless and out of control. And so once you get them dreaming about what life is going to be whenever they're older, that hope starts to build up inside, and they get that oomph to push through, because tomorrow's going to be better. And they also start recognizing the things that they have control over now, and how the people that they surround themselves with, and the decisions that they make, and what they're choosing to learn about. There's so many things that they can control right now, and as they learn how to take charge, then they kind of get over that hopelessness. So really good for kids who struggle with depression, and are just going through a hard time. Like, if you know a kid's like in a bad spot, like whatever the issue is, if they feel stuck, Color Your World is a helpful one. So Coping Skills Toolbox is all about learning coping skills, and it talks a lot about cognitive behavioral therapy skills. I've had people use this one with adults. I use it with elementary kids. This one, all the concepts apply to everybody. So there's really nobody too old or too young. With youngers, I kind of break it down and make it easier. But this one, and it can be for any kind of presenting problem. I mean, it doesn't matter what your presenting problem is, everybody needs coping skills. So it's a very broad, applicable to everyone kind of game. Thanksgiving gratitude lesson. This one is an interactive Google Slides game. So if you do telehealth, this one might be a good one for you. So it just helps kids figure out things that they're grateful for, and all about that positive mindset. The game of life, kind of like Color Your World, it kind of taps into the same issues. I have made my life cards that go along with it. You can still play the game without those, and it just isn't going to get into as many of the issues. So the cards that I made are going to ask questions about, what do you want to happen with your life? What do you want your family to look like whenever you're grown? What do you want? What kind of career do you want? Do you want to travel? Do you want to stay home? And then there's real life things of, oh no, you got in a car wreck, now you got to pay $20,000, or you got a bonus at work, so now you get some extra money. And just like real life difficulties, because sometimes you feel like you're getting ahead, and then all of a sudden your tire pops, and now you're out $600 because you got to buy new tires for your car. Just real life stuff. But kids also, there's challenges along the way, and what I do is don't have any expectation on kids. Let them decide which way they want to go. And like on the get married spot, you don't have to force them to get married. They get to choose. I do want to get married, or I don't want to get married, and they get to choose who they want to marry. And then you get to the fork in the road of, do I want to have children? Do I not want to have children? And they kind of work through those pros and cons of, what would life be like with children? What would life be like if I don't have children? Sometimes I have kids land on a baby spot whenever it's not within that little loop where you purposely have children, and they're like, oh no, I don't want a baby. It's like, we talk about it, like, well, what can you do? Well, I'm going to give my baby away. Or teenagers would probably be more inclined to say, maybe I'll put my baby up for adoption, or whatever. It opens up discussion about those topics that you otherwise might never have with them, and it's a real world issue. So anyway, game of life can be really helpful. Don't be rigid with it, would be my biggest recommendation. Next, we have Great Expectations. So this game is super helpful for kids who have people in their life that they can't count on. So maybe it's a mom or a dad who has a drug addiction. It might be parents that are divorced, and one parent is very consistent and is always there for them, and the other parent's a little bit more flaky or just not dependable. The deal with this is that younger kids, and so this is another one that you can play with a wide age range, but all the concepts really apply. They a lot of times will hold both parents to the same standard, or whoever it is. They kind of say, well, this is how parents are supposed to be. And they have to learn how to manage those expectations and say, okay, well, mom's always been there in the past, and I know I can count on her. Dad, he's hit and miss. Sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not. So then you kind of have this differential between the two of them. And once kids learn how to look back at the past and say, these are the people that have always been faithful. These are the people that have consistently been there for me. And so I know I can trust them to be there for me in the future. But Joe Blow over here has never been there for me, yet I keep expecting him to. Time to change those expectations a little so that they're not just constantly dealing with heartache and disappointment, rejection issues, all sorts of stuff can stem from that. It also has a little bit of ambiguous grief of like maybe somebody left their life and they don't know why. And not necessarily for death, but it's more severed relationships is the topic for the cards. So anyway, that one would definitely be helpful for kids who are dealing with those inconsistent relationships. Hot-headed is just a kind of a go-to anger game. It talks about all the basics, like what are your triggers? What are your go-to coping skills? What's the fight or flight response? What kind of thought patterns are you having? And how do you turn off those intrusive thoughts? So it kind of gets down to the nitty-gritty of all of those things that go into anger explosions. Therapeutic hot potato truth or dare. So this one's a group game. And so it plays like hot potato, but the person caught with a potato, and you can use like a ball or a plush toy, whatever, you're just passing something, is going to have to answer either a deep introspective question or they have to take on a dare. So I haven't played this one personally, but it sounded really fun. So this one is one from Teachers Pay Teachers, which, I'll show you the link and how this works. So you just click the link and it will take you over to this listing from Teachers Pay Teachers, and then you can read a lot more about it and kind of get the gist of it. So that is hot potato truth or dare. Jenga. Jenga is a great game. It's kind of one of those that you can play it with any age of kids. Even 3-year-olds, they'll build with it. They'll slam their Hot Wheels into it and all sorts of stuff. And then the older ones still love it. So I don't know that you ever outgrow Jenga. So it's inexpensive. You can find it at the stores. And I even bought the small little version at Dollar Tree. I've got some of those in my office right now, actually. So one of the things that I like to do with it is using the analogy that every time you take a piece out, it's kind of like having these intrusive thoughts and worries. Like, what if things don't go my way? What if nobody likes me? What if I fail? And all of those what ifs are making you more and more unstable. And eventually what happens in Jenga, it falls apart, everything crumbles. And so you're kind of doing that to your mind whenever you're constantly questioning yourself and you're dealing with these intrusive thoughts. So once you learn to silence the thoughts, then you can be more stable. Makes a little nice analogy. But you can also find tons of questions. And so there's different ways of doing it. I know a lot of people will glue the questions directly onto the Jenga game. I personally would rather have a little card deck and we just draw a card with each turn, because that way you can use the same Jenga game you just pick your deck, whether you take it from Battle of My Brain or Color Your World, whichever game you have handy, just grab yourself some cards and or you can write your own. I know that with certain kids, it can be really helpful, like to just have those questions written out, like these are the questions that this kid needs to deal with. And then you also want to make some fluff, because if you make it so obvious, the kid's going to be like, yeah, you're going for the jugular and I don't like you anymore. You don't want to do that. You want them to like you. Level Up. This is a video game themed board game that you can do. And a lot of these, all of them that I make are available either as a hard copy that I can mail you, a PDF download, or for telehealth. So several of these, like Battle of My Brain, Color Your World, Level Up, and then Great Expectations. There's a lot of them. But so whatever kind of medium you need to be able to play. So Level Up is a video game to help kids think about a strategy for life. So the concept is that whenever you're making good decisions, it's moving ahead and you're leveling up. But whenever you make a bad decision, it's like having to repeat a level. So you don't necessarily fail. You're not just going to be like, I failed at life, forget it, time to die. not a good mindset. You just say, okay, I messed up, time to start over. What did I miss from the first time around? What have I learned from it? How can I use the strategy to help me do better next time? And so they're ready to level up and make better decisions in the future. Medieval Minds is a game that I use to help kids learn about the fight, flight, or freeze response. Any kid that has anger or anxiety, I go full force into this early in counseling, because once they learn how their body works and how to turn off those intrusive thoughts, and first they have to learn that thoughts drive the fight or flight response. If you don't recognize that, then you really have a hard time overcoming it. So we talk about, how the thoughts cause the fight or flight response. And then there's coping skills that you can use to turn it off. A lot of body awareness, proximity issues. I mean, there's a whole lot to it. So it's definitely great for helping kids understand their body and how to regain control whenever they feel like they've lost it. The memory box is one that I play with kids who have lost a loved one. So it's my go-to grief game, and it's built on the concept of a memory box. So I always encourage kids to make a memory box when they've lost a loved one, where, you just put little trinkets in it. So you can put in, say, a necklace that your grandma gave you, or some snapshots of her. And then whenever you're missing grandma, you can write her a letter, you can draw pictures, whatever. Just you want to memorialize those important memories and keep them in a safe spot, because I found that most kids really worry about forgetting. And once they realize that they've memorialized this thing, they put it in writing, now I'm not going to forget, that anxiety level goes away. So anyway, that one's a good one. So this one is pretty cool. It is a mirror, sun, and compass game for teens. So it's a behavior modification, but so the mirror challenges kids to self-reflect and consider their actions and motivations. The sun cards focus on positive behavior and kindness, and the compass cards focus on direction and guidance. And so it's a little bit different. Kids that are struggling with making good choices, that one is a simple, easy game for them. New You in a New Year is a game to help kids with goal setting. It also addresses organization, planning, follow through, kind of figuring out how to establish healthy habits. So kids that are just struggling getting on track. And so you could do it either at the beginning of the school year, you could do it at the January 1st, start diving into it, or it could be even like a birthday. Like, I've got a new year, I'm a year older, I'm ready to do things differently. There's a lot of ways you could do it just because. There's lots of ways you can do that one. Writing Life's Emotional Waves is all about those big emotions and cycles that kids go through, and how to manage life when you're feeling out of control, because a cycle isn't going to last forever. And that is a very important key for kids to understand, that I'm feeling depressed and I'm feeling out of control and I'm feeling hopeless and desperate. But if they know in their soul that it's temporary, then it gives them the grit to push through. But then when they feel like this is it, things are never going to get better, that's where you see a lot of major problems occur with kids. So that one's a great one for helping them recognize that it's temporary. You've got this. These are things you can do to make yourself feel better and get through this season. So Self-Esteem UNO cards. So another UNO-like game. This one's about growth and future goals, personal strengths, supportive relationships, and positive qualities. Spirit of the Tribe is a game about belonging and friendship. So this would be for the kids that just can't find their niche. A lot of the autistic kids would really benefit from this, but there's different topics that go into it. So a little bit of it will address social anxiety, and kind of what are the things that are holding you back from putting yourself out there and pushing forward into relationships. Is it insecurities? Is it that you feel like others are blaming you or judging you? Is it that you've been burned in the past and you haven't learned how to heal from that or move forward and trust again? There's a lot of barriers that can keep kids from really engaging socially. And so it's also going to help kids think about what group of kids are going to be best for me. Am I going to fit in best with the ball players whenever I really don't ever leave my bedroom? Am I going to fit in well with the band kids whenever I really don't like music and I don't play anything. You know, if they find people with similar hobbies and interests, they're going to be accepted a lot more quickly. But whenever they try to push themselves into a certain place that they just don't fit with, then they're probably going to feel rejected in some way because they just don't have the same qualities and characteristics. So, but it's also going to kind of point them into being aware of red flags of, you know, this kid is out bullying everybody. Maybe I shouldn't be his best friend because I'm going to get in trouble or he might turn on me. Soothe Your Soul is a coping skill counseling game about using coping skills, visualization, thought stopping and replacement techniques, coping mechanisms. A lot of it is relaxation skills. And it's really more so of a just kind of be still and meditate and find that grounding place that you need. Tend the garden of your heart. This one, it hits me in a soft spot because it's so much about the imagery and metaphors can go in so many different directions because you look at it, your heart is a garden and you want it to flourish with flowers and be beautiful and vibrant, but there's little weeds that pop up and try to choke out everything. And so in our minds and in our hearts, we're constantly having to pull up all of those negative thoughts, those negative beliefs, those things that are pulling us away from who we need to be. And then we're having to put in all the good stuff, so planting the good seeds. But it also caters to an idea of body image. You know, flowers come in all different shapes and sizes and colors, and they're all beautiful. So it has an ebook that goes along. You can kind of hear my heart about this one. But anyway, I think Tend the Garden of Your Heart is great for all different age groups, and especially kids that struggle with identity and self-esteem, of being able to recognize that they don't have to look like everybody else. They don't have to sound like everybody else or do the things that everybody else does in order to be special and loved. And a lot of times it's those things that make you different, that make you so much more valuable. You're rare, you know? So anyway, so many ways you can go with that one, but I love, love, love Tend the Garden of Your Heart. Train Your Brain. This one isn't just a nitty gritty cognitive behavioral game. It just kind of gets right in there to those cognitive behavioral skills of recognizing self-talk, challenging your rational thoughts, using coping skills, rescripting. All the cognitive behavioral goodness is all jam-packed in that one. So we have another Uno, but this one's just Uno. With Uno, there's a lot of ways that you can play it. I personally like Feelings Uno, so I do it the same way that I would do Feelings Candyland with the littles, where every time you play red, you tell a time you were angry, yellow would be happy, blue would be sad, green would be scared. And so they are just emptying their emotional tank as you're playing. And by the time you're done with a round, you're like, I can't think of another time I was happy. I can't think of another time I was scared. But you've taken all of that pent up emotion and you've dumped it all out. Not only that, they learn I statements. There's a lot that you can do. There's also an online version. I put a link in there for that. The Wishing Well is a solution-focused cognitive behavioral therapy game. And so it's all based on a miracle question. And that is, if you woke up tomorrow and everything was perfect, what about your life would be different? And so within this game, it asks that same question a whole lot of different ways, kind of from different angles about, you know, like if you woke up and everything in your family was perfect, what would be different? If your body was different, what would you find different? Or if your body was perfect, what would you find different? And so they're able to process all of this stuff. So if you figure out this is the end goal, then you can put together steps to get there. And that's exactly what this game does, is it sets a goal, helps them define the goal, and then it talks about all the things that they can do to start achieving that goal. And finally, You're a Hoot. You're a Hoot is a fun game to help kids keep humor respectful. I would say this is best for your middle school kids if you're working with teens. High school kids, they're a little bit too old for it. But they are always in trouble for saying inappropriate things and, you know, using their friend as a punchline for what they're trying to communicate in their joke. Sometimes they just have to learn, you know, these are ways that you can be funny and it's appropriate. These are ways that you are trying to be funny and you're being really offensive. And so it's kind of a this, not that kind of game, like point it in the right direction. There's nothing wrong with being funny. But it also talks about the difference of joking with kids compared to joking with adults, because sometimes kids think that they can talk the same way to adults that they talk to kids and not get in trouble. And it doesn't go well with teachers a lot of times. So anyway, it's a great one for kids that have trouble keeping their humor appropriate. So I have games for everything under the sun. If, I've got my own games that I've made, but I have links to so many others. So I scour the internet regularly looking for affordable games for all sorts of different issues. So I've got different posts for anger, anxiety, grief, impulse control, coping skills, social skills, self-esteem, families, cognitive behavioral therapy, behavior problems, trauma. So there's a lot of them. There's more of them that I'm working on that will be coming out. So if you're looking for games for any or all of these issues, check it out, pathwaystopeacecounseling.com. Thanks for listening today. I'll catch you next time.